And so the ecosystem is growing extremely fast, which gives us more choice for less money. And that's what we think is super exciting about GenAI. Now, why did I say GenAI is actually going to accelerate all 6 of the trends? If I go back to the trends, essentially, GenAI plays a role in just about every one of those. Obviously, interaction explosion. GenAI is going to allow us to have a richness of interaction that we haven't been able to do with our own toolings. Even proprietary-based traditional AI models had limits that GenAI is being able to break to go beyond. One of my customers was describing that we are now able to make what we thought was impossible possible in the way we could interact with customers. So the richness of the engagement, the richness of the interaction is what GenAI is going to accelerate. I'm going to skip connected intelligence because obviously there's a level of intelligence that we can get out of this that we weren't able to before, mainly through access to a body of knowledge that was impossible to embed in the way we were interacting with our employees or our supply chain partners. The distributed meaning is interesting because the construct of the LLM model, essentially an outsourced model accessible through APIs, is starting to get people to think about data in the same way. And so we think that that's going to accelerate people to start thinking about not just accessing models, but actually accessing data through APIs. And that's going to make a change in the quality of what we're going to get, and the quality of the use cases we're going to be building through and with GenAI. But it also has applicability even in cyber. GenAI is able to help us make sense of unstructured data, and often that's where you find the early warning signs for impending attacks. And so using those tool sets to get better at protecting ourselves is also part of the story. Now, from an enterprise perspective, what does that mean? Like, should the board care? Should a CEO care about all of this? And the short answer is yes, because we think it's going to create an inflection in performance. Now, I'll come to it. This slide assumes deployment at scale, and we'll come to the barriers of doing that. But when you think about being able to deploy at scale, deploy all 6 trends at scale with GenAI embedded in it, there's an opportunity to drive performance improvement across all kinds of different performance factors of the enterprise, from growth through new products and new services. We worked with a retailer in France called Carrefour that actually launched just what sounded like a simple ChatGPT model to allow customers to create a shopping cart based on their desire for the types of food they wanted to eat in that next week. And what they found is, well, yeah, that's great, and it allows us to have a more effective e-commerce, but actually allows them to have a dialogue they were never able to have, which is, what do you want to eat? What are the types of patterns of desires that our customers were? They were 2 steps removed from that before. And they're now able to think differently about their services, and they're actually able to think about, we're no longer just in selling groceries, we're actually helping you achieve the type of food sustainability that you want, in this particular case, in the food category. And so it changes the nature of what you can do, but it also makes it more efficient as well. The reason I wanted to leave you with the examples below is that it's not universally true. So it's not because one company says, I can get rid of 50% of my back office staff by deploying GenAI on low-code platform, fully automated with rich data, that necessarily the retailer will do the same. So there's vast differences that we still see between different companies, different industries on where the benefits are going to come from. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing is these kind of trends adopted at scale and in full with GenAI built in should allow an enterprise to pivot and generate a lot more value for itself. Now, the biggest assumption in this is that we're able to do all of this at scale in our enterprise that have 20, 30, 50 years worth of legacy in its technology. And that's not easy. That's not easy mostly because most companies, and I would expect many of you in the room, you're stuck in that complexity trap. You've got a legacy that you've got to maintain. The maintenance of that legacy takes away a lot of OpEx money. that OPEX money cannot be deployed into change the organization money because the CEO and the CFO wants to return money to the shareholders. And so you're stuck in that complexity trap. The more you increment, the more you actually increase complexity. The more you increase complexity, the more you're stuck into having to increment. And so the only way to think about breaking out is actually to pick an element of the flywheel and really focus on it. Some companies say, okay, for the next decade, come hell for leather, I'm just going to simplify. It's going to be painful. It means I'm going to have to throttle a lot of great investments, great new products that the businesses wanted to do, but I'm going to simplify. Once I'm done that, I'm able to start on the flywheel of actually having a much more simple starting base to do that from. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to say we need to actually change the game in what our customers perceive from us. We need to invest overly in product and differentiation. That allows us to create a flywheel on new products, which allows you to invest in new architecture, in new technology that allows you to then slowly decompose and decouple from your legacy. But essentially, what we're often seeing when we're having those discussions is the management and the board kind of saying, yeah, this is all great, I love it, I see how different other organizations are gaining lots of value out of the technology, are being accelerated through by GenAI, but I don't know how to do it, I don't know what to do. And the trick is really to accept that you're in a complexity trap and then figure out which elements you're going to break through with. I'll leave you with one last thought, which is a little bit the list of things that we leave behind for the CIO and the CEO as a partner team to kind of think through, which is there's multiple agendas you still need to prosecute together and in parallel. Back to my comment on cyber, whether you like it or not, you'll have to spend on cyber, you have to be responsible with what you do with technology and data, and you have to be resilient in the way technology operates across the enterprise. All the way to, back to my comments on LLMs, you need to now think about the partnerships, in particular with the cloud services provider, as a strategic partnership. How are you going to work with them? They're important. They're part of the future. How are you going to work with them? And how do you actually drive value from that partnership back into your enterprise? And all of the things in between on the slide. The one thing that I haven't talked a lot about, but which is a big, big chapter of our discussions when we think about the future of enterprise technology, which is the operating model component. I hinted at that when I was talking about the trends that see an acceleration in change, but it implies that the business is also going to change their operating model and align to what's possible with technology. That's important because too often, we find that the management team and the boards assume that the CIO is the sole responsible for actually being able to drive speed and pace of change out of technology, and we kind of know it's not the case. So this agenda is very much the agenda that both the CEO and the CIO need to align on and agree to actually make changes with.